2000's got to be black. 2000's got to be black. 2000's got to be black. Change the values in your mind. Save the human race. Okay, welcome to Black Man's Corner. I'm Joey. This is part 1 of a 2-part video unpacking the anxieties associated with the looming possibility of a majority minority. But first, to set the mood, I wanted you to hear a few bars from a song I'm going to unpack a bit along the way. But copyright infringement becomes a real thing when you least expect it. Hence, why all you have is my rendition. If I actually played the song for you, I would have problems resisting exceeding fair use standards. Real talk in full effect. I was, however, exploring jazz greats when I came across a classic cut from Roy Ayers' 1975 album, A Tear to a Smile. Upon hearing this cut, 2000 Black, I was lost in the potential meanings within the song. I first interpreted it as meaning in the year 2000, 25 years after he released it, black people's time would have finally come. Think about it. Think about it. Think about 2000 Black. You better think about your future and forget about your past. All the things you've lived before cannot be lived again. If all our people's tears cannot be cried again, you better think about your future and forget about your past. Now, I do realize that Roy Ayers' 2000 Black could also have been double entendre, meaning lights out for black folk. A black apocalypse. Wow, right? It is often when I'm speechless that I try to display some wit for this episode, though it doesn't fit. Sometimes quipping is self-absorbed tripping, though it is a difficult thing to quit. Anyway, Prince's song, 1999, was released in 1982, 7 years after Roy Ayers' 2000 Black. Within the song, Prince sang, 2000 party over, oops, out of time. So tonight I'm gonna party like it's 1999. All partying aside, Prince's oops meant something bad was going to jump off in 2000. While 2000 wasn't a walk in the park, 2020 would be the year better befitting his oops. Why would two worldly musicians, both 18 and 25 years prior to the year 2000, have predicted shit jumping off in the same year? Was a memo circulated throughout the black intelligentsia? Oh, there are private black networks too. What, you didn't know? Some viewers are now thinking, is your way serious? Well, am I? The memo, nevertheless, would have been warning of anticipated problems in 2000. Or perhaps Ayers and Prince had both obtained their party favors from the same garden, a garden wherein it rains purple and everybody loves the sunshine. Just in case you missed those references, bam! Bam! I got you. So I recently read an article in Atlantic Magazine, The Myth of a Majority-Minority America, which, amongst other things, hinted at reasons why Charlottesville happened, as well as Trump's MAGA-inspired insurrection. Essentially, it revealed a controversial theory that around the middle of the century, 2045 more precisely, non-whites collectively will be the majority, with whites dropping down in hierarchical positioning. Say what? Some scholars say majority-minority is a divisive concept, while other scholars refute that, or at least refute that take by saying it is seen as divisive because many whites refuse to accept the possibility of being in an inferior position to people historically always having been situated beneath them. Of course, some pundits also said the second impeachment of Trump was divisive. So I guess it just depends upon one's perspective on divisive. I should have tried that strategy as a child, though. Mom, You are being divisive. I refuse to accept your punishment for my getting caught with my hand in the cookie jar. It's your bad for catching me. I would have felt stupid saying that. How do they not? Throughout the history of America, some whites have been extremely comfortable watching others or the other in subservient or lesser positions. Those scholars who say that the majority-minority narrative creates winners and losers far too often have skin in the game on the side of the potential losers. Nevertheless, some whites can't imagine losing, especially when racially they've seldom, if ever, lost. I guess that is like imagining someone telling me that my neighbor's dogs will all be walking on their hind legs, wearing clothes, owning homes, participating in civic engagement, voting, one day eventually becoming equal to me, even though they speak a very different language. Yeah, I would probably push back against that too. But in this comparison, people of color aren't dogs, though we are in a dogfight for the uncontested right to vote. Even comedian Jerry Seinfeld, in the episode The Airport of his hit TV show, told Elaine, while bickering over which of them should ride in first class while the other rode in coach, that because he had ridden in coach before and she hadn't, he not only couldn't go back to coach, but he wouldn't. It takes a very special type of person to willingly give up some privilege. Thankfully, so far, there continue to be more willing than not. But I'm an optimist. Nevertheless, when the article talks about whites, it is not a reference to or about you. You are more beige because you're on the same page, fully engaged in social justice. Also, because of how comfortable you are around racially underrepresented folk, I think the term is woke, smart enough to avoid that racial joke, making people of color comfortable around you. Unlike far too many white Republican senators and House representatives, committed only to being reelected, even at the risk of having neglected a democracy they should have protected, but instead pledged allegiance to the first presidential insurrectionists, reserving their own space on the wrong side of his story. Aside from the peculiarity of First Nation Americans not even being mentioned once in the article, it goes on to state that 30% of Asians, 25% Latinx, and 20% Black all marry outside of their race, having all succumbed to some dimension of what Spike Lee coined as jungle fever. Yeah, the article essentially addresses the future's dominant racial group possibly being, you ready for this? Biracial, and even within that category, very diverse. Similar to the dubious omission of America's indigenous people, no stats were given on how many whites are interracially married. Ironically though, 75% of the interracial marriages of non-whites are with whites. Is it love? And are someone subconsciously committed to moving on up like the Jeffersons? Perhaps a topic for another day. It does bring to mind the Black folktale about the absence of rare sightings of white Jeffersons in America as a result of Thomas Jefferson's only sons resulting from the interracial mating of Jefferson and Sally Hemings. I call it mating because it couldn't be considered dating, because for enslaved Sally, there was no escape from her presidential rape. Think about it. Yeah. The Atlantic article also shared research that racial minorities, potentially ascending to an elevated position over the racial group that throughout history made their lives hell, would welcome whites into this brave new world. While it has often been said that revenge is a dish best served cold, Payback is unequivocally self-indulgent. Think about it, think about it. Yeah. Most people don't conceptualize biracial as first cousin to bisexual, in that once upon a time, bisexuals, like biracials, were not allowed to honestly define themselves as bisexual, being pressured to choose one lifestyle, gay, or the other, straight, as if they were being greedy by wanting both. I'm not hating. Similarly, most biracials historically, and even now societally, are defined by their lower hierarchical status, Asian, Latinx, or Black, instead of white, while 1 in 9 US-born babies is raised interracially. Many within my Latinx crew have told me that cloaking themselves in whiteness is common in some of their communities. In Black America, that's called passing, and is frowned upon, especially by those who can't do it. Haters, perhaps, are cultural purists. In the film, The Human Stain, where even the title suggests it is problematic, human stain? A biracial man discovers it is better for him to pass if he wants success, or to avoid suffering the consequences of the one-drop rule, which unforgivingly relegated anyone with one drop of minority blood to non-white status. Any person who is 99% white and 1% black, upon revealing that smidgen of blackness, is at risk. So considering not risking it makes sense. It is unfamiliarity with people of color, fear, and Fox News spreading anxiety through spoon-feeding whites that has whites afraid to imagine their future. Fearful that in 2045, it could be white lives matter being protested. Ironically, it doesn't have to be. If the right thing is done today, in real time, that's called paying it forward. Heightened awareness about the complexity of passing helps prevent a backlash against passing in the Black community. Lessening verbal jabs about light-skinned blacks like, they think they're all light, bright, and damn near white. Though today, that same old song still exists, just without a hateful twist. It also didn't hurt that Barack and Kamala's success is reframing biracial, with many more Black people receptive to looking beyond their race for that different taste. It also didn't hurt that they both have said it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, while no less asserting that being of mixed race is never the child's choice and therefore shouldn't limit the child's voice. And speaking of voice, mine is a little fatigued at the moment, so I'm gonna end here and we'll pick this up for part 2. As always, I appreciate the time you spent in Black Man's Corner. If you like the video, and please consider subscribing. As always, power to the people.